It was written that Edward Hopper was influenced by the writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson, as was Starkweather. In fact, Emerson's limited edition of 40 handmade books was illustrated by none other than Starkweather. I have one of the 40 books upstairs in the display case. We don't know where the other ones are, but I'm very fortunate to own the one I have. Starkweather loved to paint landscapes, room interiors, portraits, paintings within paintings. His paintings within paintings series was probably influenced by William Merritt Chase. Here's an example of Chase's paintings that I'm sure influenced him with the paintings within paintings. There's also a similar composition that I think I could quickly get to without causing everybody to stand up. And you notice the chair in this piece. There's a lovely chair that's sitting out. Forgive me, it's everybody's covered up all the paintings on it, but we'll look for it. It's right there by Bob Silverman. It happens to be the same chair that you see. It's called in the Metropolitan Museum. Starkweather did that painting while standing in the Metropolitan Museum. You know when they do this, that means you're supposed to get off the stage, but they haven't played the music yet. So the chair similarity. Go on from here. There's a very famous painting by Mrs. Vanderbilt, who is the grandmother of Anderson Cooper. It's a large painting, privately owned. It was in the Starkweather Museum. There's a postcard of it upstairs in the display case. It is also in the Smithsonian collection of photographs. That is the painting. I have been begging the man not to sell it because I want it to be in the next exhibition I hope that we have in 2012. It is a spectacular painting. He wanted to sell it when he was in Florida. He moved in the last 2 years. I'm not telling anybody where because I'm going to keep this one private. But we're holding on to it. Irving and I talk a lot via email. Obviously, you can tell that he can observe environments and paint in his environments. It's one of the hallmarks of his work. He also knew how to judge the right amount of paint for the effect he was looking for. It's a lovely monochromatic painting in the back there. Then also in the Metropolitan Museum, but if you look at the relationship between the two paintings, there are none, other than there's this square frame. The interesting thing for me is that they're done in the same place, but yet totally different. If you look at the, there's a lot to look at. Another painting I want to bring attention to is the one called Under the Brooklyn Bridge, and it's also upstairs. Imagine standing in the middle of winter and painting under the Brooklyn Bridge in a real winter storm. And it just looked a lovely little painting. He also was able to do impasto work upstairs. It was a beautiful little painting. I think it's right up above there. It's called At Cape St. Mary. He was a master using the white paper. In fact, the Brooklyn Museum, it's called Reserved Highlights, singled him out in 2008 in an exhibition they called Brushed with Light as one of the greatest painters of using reserved highlights. And I know I have the Brooklyn Museum catalog coming up next. And I also have the reprint from, and I would like to give her credit, the Antoinette Owen is the one that did this at the Brooklyn Museum. She singled them out, one of the 8 paintings of the 70 in the Brooklyn Museum that were chosen. It's a lovely catalog that they have in this work. What I'd like to show you now is an example of what I'm talking about. This is a very hard thing to do. One needs to think in advance about what will I leave white. There is no white paint in watercolor. So one has to be able to reserve the highlights. And it is a wonderful technique. And there's several of them in the exhibition that are very lovely to see without white paint. You need to be brilliant. I do not believe he was documenting events for posterity. I believe he painted for the enjoyment of the process. He was a gifted craftsman. He knew how to use symbolism in his work. Smithsonian has a bunch of these symbolic imagery that he did, some very funny ones. This is him in his painting. This is him as El Greco. This is that one I could have purchased and didn't. This one I could have purchased and didn't. It's him as Van Gogh. And this one is him as Blake. And he did a second one about him with Blake. And that one was also for sale not too long ago. I didn't get that one either. When we think about this painting that I'm going to talk about, it's called Leonardo Thing. It's the last known Starkweather painting. In this painting, we see Leonardo da Vinci with a triptych behind him in the arches with the Mona Lisa and two of Leonardo's Madonnas with children. You also see St. John the Baptist. San Giovanni Battista is in that painting, although it looks like a woman, and it looks like a very feminine St. John. He's pointing to heaven, and his cross is faintly painted in the background. The painting of San Giovanni Battista by none other than Leonardo was believed to be his last painting. We believe that painting, is Starkweather's last painting. There's also a symbolic skull, a cat, and the famous inverted writing that was typical of Da Vinci in this painting. Non mi leggia, a chi non è matematico nella mia principi. Do not read my work if you are not a mathematician. The skull has been symbolized as the reminder of life's impermanence. Throughout history, the cat can be interpreted to symbolize God. Leonardo is quoted to say, "A cat is nature's masterpiece." When we examine his achievements in painting, they are impressive. He had prestigious one-person exhibitions in important New York galleries. Many positive reviews. His paintings were purchased by Metropolitan Museum, Brooklyn, San Diego, Hickory, Tides, Beaverbrook, Yale, James Madison University. There's a museum in his honor for 30 years in New Market, Virginia. Starkweather exhibited at the Société des Artistes Français, the Society of Independent Artists with Chase, Sloan, Henri Glackens, and Butler. American Watercolor Society, the Salma Gundy Club. In fact, the Salma Gundy Club found a beautiful article that I hope to put in the book. Did the history of the Salma Gundy Club, written by William Henry Shelton. It was a fundraising activity, and they asked Starkweather to, as one of 7 artists, to put some originals in that book. The book is not available. If anybody knows of a way that I could find one, I will talk to them. He was represented in the Centennial Exhibition of the American Watercolor Society, and he won many awards for his paintings. Smithsonian asked me to identify the 60 photographs that they have of his works. They have the photographs. They know they're his paintings. They don't know the titles, the mediums, or the dates. So I'll be working on that as a little extra aside in my life. In May of 1969, William Edward Bloomfield Starkweather died alone, as he was for most of his life. He was buried in the same town he was adopted in, Winchester, Connecticut, by the Starkweather family, not far from where John Henry Taughman lived. On Starkweather's grave was his bronze oil painting palette. Someone has stolen it. The Metropolitan Museum reproduced their Starkweather painting for 3 of the 2011 New York calendars. Much to my surprise, opposite the introductory page is a William Starkweather. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely painting. And they, from time to time, have used their Starkweather in greeting cards and seasonal cards. If you're interested in seeing more of his work, you can go to the Spaniman Gallery. They have 22 of his paintings, 45 East 58th Street. Don't tell them I sent it. They have published 6 books with Starkweather's work in it. I'm glad to say that the 7th book will be totally Starkweather's, and I will be publishing it. So Museum of North Carolina, if you're down in North Carolina, has a wonderful group of Starkweather paintings. Tides Institute, if you're up in Maine, has a fabulous paintings of this. And James Madison University has a beautiful group of his paintings, probably the largest known paintings that he ever did. And the paintings are in disrepair, and they are working on a Getty grant to try to put them in repair, because I told them that in 2012 they have to be in the exhibition. So we're working on that. If you are interested in more information, I'll be here to speak. And remember, the Art League is a not-for-profit 501c3 charity, and every dollar you give is tax deductible. I know I've said this before. Jeannie makes you happy, I'm sure that I'm saying that. But you can get one, and what I'd like to do now is just kind of go on. I'd like to introduce Dr. Marcus Burke. Dr. Burke holds an undergraduate degree in English from Princeton University, MTS in Church History from Harvard, MA, PhD, Art History from New York University, where he's also been adjunct professor of fine arts. He served on the faculties of Yale University, SUNY Purchase, Southern Methodist University, University of Texas, Stephen Austin State University, St. Peter's College, Rutgers, Hewitt, National Design Museum, Master's Degree Program in Decorative Arts, New York University Institute of Fine Arts. Dr. Burke has taught hybrid history studio courses in old master materials and techniques, as well as more traditional art history classes from 1974 to 1997. Dr. Burke held the J. Clausen Mills Research Fellowship at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where he later co-curated the 1990 exhibition, Mexico, Splendors of 30 Centuries. He's been a guest curator at the Art Museum of South Texas, the Davenport Museum of Art, the Heckscher Museum of Art, as well as a consultant to many other museums. He served as the chief curator and assistant director of the Meadows Museum, Southern Methodist University, 1985 to 1988. He's currently senior curator of paintings, drawings, and metalwork at the Hispanic Society.